Hey, what's up? My name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing my most anticipated books of 2024. This is a video that's been like a long time coming because, you know, ideally I would have been posting this probably at the beginning of January or like right at the start of the year. But you know, things just got a little busy this month with Winterween and like other videos that I was trying to put out. So I apologize that this video is a little bit later than usual. But on this list, I have about 40 books that are on my most anticipated of the year. I do have even more books that I am aware of and I'm intrigued by, but I think these 40 are like my top priority. Like I'm most excited about these. The majority of these books that you're about to see are going to be like mystery, thriller, and kind of like horror books. I will be separating this video into the different genres. So I'll be starting with the mystery and thriller and the horror stuff that I'm excited about. And then towards the end of the video, I'll get into the romance books and then other books that don't really fit into any of those three genres that I'm interested in reading. But yeah, we do have a lot of books to get through. So let's just jump right into this list. All right, so starting off my thriller and horror list, is anybody surprised that Middle of the Night by Riley Sager is one of my most anticipated books of the year for sure. This one is Riley Sager's latest thriller. I believe this one is his 7th published book, and this one is coming out June 18th. This one sounds especially interesting because Riley Sager is actually going to be writing from the perspective of a man for the first time ever. And so I'm definitely intrigued by this one. And this one has a really interesting premise because it's about a young boy who like disappears in the past when he's 10 years old, and he claims that there was like monsters in the neighborhood, and there's a mysterious institute, and it's about how he's going back to his small town years later. It just sounds like it has a lot of tropes that I'm really gonna love, so I hope that this one is a win for me. The next thriller on this list is gonna be The Fury by Alex Michaelides. This one, he's the author of The Silent Patient, you know, so he's one of my favorite thriller authors, and this one actually just did publish on January 16th, so it is available at the time that I'm filming this. But this one sounds like it's also gonna be really great because it says it's about a reclusive ex-movie star and her famous friends whose spontaneous trip to a private Greek island is upended by a murder. I love the movie vibes and the island vibes, and this one is actually going to be my book club booktube pick for the month of March. So we're going to be reading this one together for my book club in March, so hopefully you can join us for that. Oh my gosh, okay, this next one is one that's coming out in February. I'm really excited. It's called Your Shadow Half Remains. I can't remember where I first heard about this book, but I saw somebody compare this like Bird Box meets The Last of Us, and I was like, what? Because those are two of my favorite things. Because it says one look can kill. Riley has not even seen a single human face in longer than she can reckon. No faces, no eyes, not if you want to survive. But when a new neighbor moves in down the road, Riley's overwhelming need for human contact makes her throw caution to the wind. Somehow, in this world where other people can mean a gruesome bloody death, Ellis makes her feel safe, and as they grow closer, Riley's grip on reality begins to slip and she can no longer fight her deepest desires. All Riley wants to do is look. And I have no idea what this book is about any more than that. I know that it's a horror novella. It's only about 176 pages, and it says that it's queer and apocalyptic. So like, sign me up. This sounds so good. Like, this is definitely one of my most anticipated books of the year. I can't wait to read this. Ooh, Josh Malerman also announced a new book this year called Incidents Around the House. This one's coming out in June. I don't really know anything about this. I mean, the cover looks like is that a stuffed bunny? Like a stuffed animal on the cover? I don't really know. But it says a chilling horror novel about a haunting told from the perspective of a young girl whose troubled family is targeted by an entity she calls Other Mommy. I don't need to know anything more than that. I'm sorry. I will read anything that Josh Malerman writes because he's had so many 5 stars for me at this point. Ooh, and then Peter Swanson also recently announced a 3rd book, A Talent for Murder, and it looks like this is going to be a 3rd book in the trilogy now, I guess, for The Kind Worth Killing, because it looks like we're following the same characters, Henry and Lily, and this one's coming out July 4th, so this one is coming out a little bit later this year. But it says a newlywed librarian begins to suspect the man she married might be a murderer. Peter Swanson can be so hit or miss for me, but after loving The Kind Worth Killing and the sequel, The Kind Worth Saving, this gives me so much hope for this 3rd book that this could also be something that I'll love. So I'm definitely going to be checking this one out in July. Oh my gosh, this one sounds especially cool. This one's called We Used to Live Here. It's coming out June 18th, and this one's a queer adult horror book. It literally says The Turn of the Key meets Parasite. Like, I'm sorry, pause. Those are two of my favorite things in this world. Like, Parasite is probably in like my top 5 favorite movies of all time, and The Turn of the Key I've always considered to be one of my favorite thrillers, so like, what? It feels like this was like made for me. It says, in this eerily haunting debut and Reddit hit, soon to be a Netflix original movie starring Blake Lively. Like, so they've already sold the movie rights for this. It says it's about two homeowners whose lives are turned upside down when the house's previous residents unexpectedly visit. Dude, I don't know. It sounds like it's gonna be weird and disturbing, and I love it. I really love this cover too. I think it looks so interesting. And then we have The New Couple in 5B by Lisa Unger. This is actually one that I have an ARC copy of that I am planning to read very soon, actually. But this one comes out March 5th, and I just thought I would mention it here because this is definitely one of my most anticipated thrillers that's coming out this year. I love thrillers, obviously, that have like lots of New York vibes and atmosphere, and this one looks like it has all of that. It says, a couple inherits an apartment with a spine-tingling past. I don't even think I need to know more than that. It kind of sounds like it's gonna be some kind of combination of like lock every door and like nestlings. Like, I love creepy apartment buildings in New York City. Like, that is my brand of weird things that I love in thriller and horror books, so I am here for this one. And then also coming out in March, we have Murder Road by Simone St. James. Simone St. James can also be one of those authors that's very hit or miss for me, but this premise in particular sounds very interesting. It says, a young couple find themselves haunted by a string of gruesome murders committed along an old deserted road. And it takes place in 1995, which is like pretty cool because like that's the year I was born. And it says they've taken a wrong turn. They're looking for a small resort town where they plan to spend their honeymoon. They spot a hitchhiker along the deserted road and they stop to help. But then when the hitchhiker gets into their car, they see the blood seeping from her jacket and a truck barreling down Atticus Lane after them. The hitchhiker dies at the local hospital. They find themselves in the crosshairs of the police. Unexplained murders have been happening along Atticus Line for years, and the cops finally have two witnesses who easily become their only suspects. Oh my gosh, the most exciting thing too is that it says as they start to dig into the history of the town, they soon learn that there is something supernatural at work. So like, the fact that this could have like a supernatural element to it is what intrigues me the most about this. Ooh, we also have One of Our Kind by Nicola Yoon, which is really interesting and really exciting because Nicola Yoon has, I think she's only previously published young adult, because she's the author of The Sun Is Also a Star, which is a young adult book that I absolutely loved when I read it back in the day. And this one's coming out June 11th. I think this might be her first like adult debut. And this one just says The Stepford Wives meets Get Out, which is definitely what intrigues me the most about this. It says Nicola Yoon's first adult novel, a terrifying and thought-provoking look at what it means to be Black in America. This one just looks and sounds like it's gonna be really interesting, and I love seeing authors that have previously published young adult books writing adult books, especially in the thriller genre. I think that's so fun and I can't wait to read this. And then I also have this book on the list, Where Sleeping Girls Lie. I think this is the only young adult mystery thriller that I have on this list, but this one's coming out in March. And the reason why I put this one on my list is because it's the same author as Ace of Spades, which is a young adult mystery thriller kind of book that I really enjoyed when I read it a few years ago now. And this one also looks like it's gonna be really cool. I mean, I really love this cover. Oh my gosh, like that cover is so stunning. But in this story, it says it's a young adult contemporary mystery. It's about a girl new to boarding school who discovers dark secrets and cover-ups after her roommate disappears. I don't know about you, but I love the idea of reading about a boarding school in particular too. I feel like that would make it for a really fun atmosphere. And then next up I have The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton. This is one that I'm really curious about because this author has written books before that I've DNF'd or that I haven't been that interested in, but this one in particular, the premise just really intrigues me, and this one's coming out in May this year. It says, solve the murder to save what's left of the world. Outside the island, there is the world destroyed by a fog that swept the planet, killing anyone it touched. But then on the island, it's perfect. It says they have 122 villagers and 3 scientists living in peaceful harmony. And then it says until one of their beloved scientists is found brutally stabbed to death, and they learn the murder has triggered a lowering of the security system around the island, the only thing that was keeping the fog at bay. If the murder isn't solved within 92 hours, the fog will smother the island and everyone on it. It just sounds like it's gonna be crazy because it sounds like one of those mystery thrillers that has more like sci-fi or dystopian elements to it, so it sounds like it'll be a fun time. I can't wait to read it. Okay, and then next up I have The House That Horror Built by Christina Henry, which is coming out May 14th. And Christina Henry is an author that I have a lot of love for because of how much I loved Near the Bone. This one says, a single mother working in the gothic mansion of a reclusive horror director stumbles upon terrifying secrets in this captivating new horror novel. I mean, I love the idea of reading about a gothic gothic mansion, as well as reading about a horror director. Like, those are two words that really intrigue me right there, so I can't wait to read this one. And then I feel like there's a few books coming out that have very similar premises and covers and titles. Like this one, Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay, is going to be coming out June 25th. Paul Tremblay is an author that I have such, you know, hit or miss feelings with. Like, his books are either like 5 stars or 1 star for me, you know, like there is no in between. But this one looks interesting because, again, it involves like a horror movie. I feel like there's a lot of thriller books and horror books publishing this year that have to do with like horror movies and like behind the scenes of horror movies, so that's a cool trend I like to see. But this one says a chilling twist on the cursed film genre. It takes place in June 1993, and we're following a group of young filmmakers who spend 4 weeks making Horror Movie, a notorious disturbing art house horror flick. Sounds really interesting, and I like the idea of like a twist on the cursed film genre. And then also in the month of June, there's this book publishing called How to Make a Horror Movie and Survive by Craig DeLuey, and this one also sounds equally interesting. It's weird though that this one has like a similar cover and a similar title, and it's publishing in June as well. This one says it's a darkly humorous horror novel that sees a famous 80s slasher director set out to shoot the most terrifying horror movie ever made using an occult camera that might be and probably is demonic. So like the fact that this one is also following a horror director and he's using a camera that might be demonic, I don't know, I'm definitely intrigued by this one. I mean, this is the same author as episode 13, which no, I was not a huge fan of that one. I think I'm definitely more intrigued by the Paul Tremblay than this one, but really cool that they both have very similar covers and like premises. All right, and then I have the book Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle. This one's coming out July 9th, and Chuck Tingle is the author of Camp Damascus, which is a horror book that I just read at the end of last year that I ended up really enjoying, so I definitely have my eyes on this one, and I love the cover for this one. I think it's so freaking beautiful. Like, I love the colors. This one says it's a heart-pounding story about what it takes to succeed in a world that wants you dead. It says we're following a jaded scriptwriter who's been working in Hollywood for years and has just been nominated for his first Oscar. But when he's pressured by his producers to kill off a gay character in the upcoming season finale for The Algorithm, Misha discovers that it's not that simple. As he is haunted by his past and past mistakes, Misha must risk everything to find a way to do what's right before it's too late. I don't know, it just sounds like it's gonna be a fun time. Again, this is another horror book that kind of revolves around like a Hollywood film, it sounds like, or like people working in Hollywood, and that is something that very much intrigues me, so I can't wait for this one. Oh my gosh, and then we have The Queen by Nick Cutter, which this one's not coming out till August 27th. Like, this one is definitely a little bit of a ways away, but you know, Nick Cutter is the author of The Troop, which is one of my favorite books of all time, so I'm definitely looking forward to this. It says this is a heart-pounding novel of terror about a young woman searching for her missing friend and uncovering a shocking truth. All right, and then we have No Road Home by John Fram, which this is one that I'm also very much looking forward to because John Fram is the author of The Bright Lands, which ended up being one of my favorite horror novels when I read it a few years ago. This one's coming out July 23rd, and this one says it's a mystery, horror, LGBT, paranormal, like those are all the genre tags. I'm very intrigued by this. I also love the blue cover and the way that the O is like a key. I think that looks so cool. But it says, for years, single father Toby has done his best to keep his sensitive young son safe from the bigotry of the world. Horror book just looks really interesting. This one also looks like it takes place in Texas, which is much like the last horror book that John Fram just came out with, so I'm definitely gonna be checking this one out in July. And then next on the list we have I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones. This one's coming out July 16th. This one also looks like it takes place in Texas, which is weird that I just put these back to back on the list. But this is one that I'm also really excited about because Stephen Graham Jones can be such a hit or miss author for me, but this one in particular looks so cool and I'm obsessed with this cover. It says, this is a classic slasher story with a twist perfect for fans of Riley Sager and Grady Hendrix. Like, I'm sorry, what? It takes place in 1989 in Texas. It says we're following a young kid named Tolly Driver, and it says here Stephen Graham Jones explores the Texas he grew up in, the unfairness of being on the outside through the slasher horror he lives, but from the perspective of the killer, Tolly writing his own biography. So it sounds like it's gonna be some kind of like immersive story where he's writing about his own autobiography. Like, I can't tell if it's the character that's writing it or if it's Stephen Graham Jones. Like, I don't know what's going on in this, but I am very intrigued. And then we have The God of the Woods, which is a mystery thriller fiction book that's coming out in June. This is from the author Liz Moore, which is the same author as Long Bright River, which was one of my favorite kind of like literary thriller type of books that I've ever read. So I'm highly anticipating this one just because of that alone. I think the cover looks really cool, but it's also really kind of interesting. Like, I don't know how I feel about this random pink dripping paint over the cover, but this one says it's an immersive, propulsive novel about a missing child whose disappearance sends equal shockwaves through 3 very different worlds, which one of them is a rustic teen summer camp that operates in its shadows. It looks like this one takes place in the year 1975, which I also think is pretty interesting. But yeah, I'm not too sure if this one's gonna have the same kind of like literary writing style that Long Bright River had. But this one just sounds really interesting because it's from that same author. Like, after loving Long Bright River as much as I did, I'm highly looking forward to anything that this author publishes in the future. And then we have The Nature of Disappearing by Kimmy Cunningham Grant, and this one is going to be coming out June 18th. And this is one that I'm really excited about because this is the same author as These Silent Woods, and that was actually a BookTube pick a couple years ago now. And that was a book that I really ended up enjoying. It had like a really great snowy atmosphere and just really great characters and writing, and like it's really stuck with me through the years. So I'm really looking forward to her next new thriller that's coming out. This one says it's about a wilderness guide who must team up with the man who ruined her life years ago when the friend who introduced them goes missing. I don't know, it just sounds like it's gonna be really fun. I love this cover, by the way. I think it looks so stunning, and I love that it's gonna be like, they're gonna be out in the wilderness. Like, I feel like that's really gonna like raise the stakes of this. And it's so funny because apparently the girl in this book that goes missing, it says she's become a popular social media star documenting her hashtag van life adventures with her rugged survivalist boyfriend. So it just sounds like it's gonna be something that I'm really interested in reading. Like, I'm so curious about the van life in social media, so I think that'll be something really fun to read. And then the next thriller on this list is gonna be The Unwedding by Ali Condi. And this one's coming out in June as well. In this book, we're following this character and her husband, Luke, were supposed to spend their 20th wedding anniversary together at the luxurious resort at Broken Point in Big Sur, California. And it says, but now she's traveling solo. It says, to add insult to injury, there's a wedding at Broken Point scheduled during her stay. And then she discovers the body of the groom floating in the pool in the rain. She realizes that she's not the only one whose future is no longer guaranteed. I don't know, it sounds like it's gonna be really interesting. I love the inclusion of like weddings in thrillers like this, and I also love that it has like a California setting. I think it'll make it super fun, and it looks like this one's getting really great reviews so far from the early reviews, so I'm intrigued. And then this one on the list, I added it even though it doesn't even have a cover yet, but it's The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. This one's coming out in June, and I mean, come on, Lucy Foley, like, she's the author of The Guest List and The Paris Apartment, which were 2 books that I really enjoyed, and this one kind of sounds like it's going to be similar to The Guest List because it says, welcome to the opening weekend of The Manor, a luxury resort built on top of old secrets in an ancient wood. We're following the founder, the lover, the mystery guest, the kitchen help, the detective, all have an agenda, all have a past, but not everyone will survive. So much like The Guest List, it sounds like you're following from a bunch of different perspectives and there's like a murderer. I also love like a luxury resort. It just sounds like it's going to be a really fun time, and because it's Lucy Foley, like, I'm definitely going to read this. And then the last mystery kind of horror book that I have on this list is this one called Private Rights by Julia Armfield, and this is another one that it doesn't even have a cover yet, but this one's going to be coming out in June as well. And this is from the same author as Our Wives Under the Sea, which is a horror book that I absolutely loved. So like, it doesn't even matter what this book is about, I will definitely be reading anything that this author publishes. But this one says, we're following 3 sisters navigating queer love and faith at the end of the world. I can't wait to see what the cover reveal is going to end up looking like because I'm sure it's going to be stunning. Okay, and now moving on to the romance books that are on my most anticipated list. Kicking off this list, I have The Breakup Tour, which is a book that I've been talking about pretty frequently on my channel lately, and it actually publishes on January 23rd, so by the time you're watching this video, this book will be available and out in the world. But I had to include it on this list because this is a book that I've been anticipating for months now. Like, I heard about this book at the end of last year and I was like, oh my gosh, it sounds so cute. This one, we're following a rising star musician who has a second chance at love with an old flame. So basically we're following this girl named Riley who's like a superstar. She's a promising singer-songwriter turned overnight superstar thanks to her breakup Such concept album. And I guess there's this guy Max that she used to go to college with, like it was like her college boyfriend's sweetheart, and they haven't spoken since the relationship ended, but then he's gonna be going out on tour with her on like the biggest tour of her career, and it just sounds like it's gonna be so much fun. It says it's recommended for fans of Taylor Swift, and so that definitely has me intrigued, and I hope it's a good time. I don't know, it doesn't look like it's getting very good reviews so far, so that has me a little bit nervous, but I'm still really looking forward to this one. I'm hoping to read it in February soon. And then of course we have Funny Story by Emily Henry, which is coming out this April. This is probably one of my most anticipated books of the year because it's Emily Henry. Like, can Emily Henry do any wrong? I don't think so. This one says it's a new novel about a pair of opposites with the wrong thing in common. It says Daphne always loved the way her fiance Peter told their story, how they met, fell in love, and moved back to his lakeside hometown to begin their life together. He was really good at telling it right up until the moment he realized he was actually in love with his childhood best friend, Petra, which is how Daphne begins her new story, stranded in beautiful Waning Bay, Michigan, without family or friends, but with a dream job as a children's librarian and proposing to be roommates with the only person who could possibly understand her predicament, Petra's ex, Miles. So it says Miles is exactly the opposite of practical. So I don't know too much about this, but it sounds like they're gonna be roommates, which is one of my absolute favorite tropes in romances. Like, I love a roommates to lovers more than I love most romance tropes, so I cannot wait to read this one. And I mean, it's Emily Henry, come on. Like, we all know I'm gonna be reading this as soon as it comes out. And then of course we have my girl Ashley Poston is publishing a new book called A Novel Love Story. This one comes out June 25th, and this cover, are you kidding me? I love the font choice. I love the colors. It just looks so beautiful. And this is the same author as The Dead Romantics and The 7-Year Slip, which were two books that I absolutely loved. Like, some of my favorite romance books that I've read in the last 2 years. So I will read literally anything she comes out with, and this one sounds especially great because we're following a professor of literature who finds herself caught up in a work of fiction. So it says we're following this character who's a professor of literature. She teaches prestigious courses on history's greatest romances. And then it says at the last minute, she winds up lost in Hudson Valley alone in a thunderstorm. When she takes shelter in a bookstore, she immediately gets on the bad side of its grumpy owner and finds herself in a quaint town that feels like it's right out of a book, because it is. You know, something that I think is really great about Ashley Poston's romance books is that they always have this kind of like magical element to them. Like, either one of the characters is actually dead, or like there's time travel elements to it. And this one sounds like it's so cool because it sounds like she gets stuck in like a fictional story that's not actually real. Oh my gosh, I just love Ashley Poston so much. I can't wait to read this. I think it's gonna be so cute. And then the next book on this list is gonna be Slow Dance by Rainbow Rowell. This one's gonna be coming out in July, and I can't even believe the fact that we have a new Rainbow Rowell coming out this year because, you know, Fangirl is one of my favorite books of all time. It's my most reread book of all time. I will read anything Rainbow Rowell writes because of how much I love Fangirl, and I feel like we haven't gotten a book from Rainbow Rowell like this in over 10 years. Or at least like not an actual fully published book that's not like a graphic novel or a short story or anything like that. Like, it's been so long, right? And so I'm very much looking forward to this, and this one is a romance kind of like fiction book. It says it tells the humorous and heartbreaking love story of best friends, Shiloh and Carrie, from their inseparable teen years to their far-flung adulthoods as they try to figure out what their relationship is, where it went wrong, and how to finally make it right. It sounds like this one will also be following characters who are either living in Omaha or grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, which I just think is so fitting for Rainbow Rowell. Like, all of her books take place in Nebraska usually, so I'm so glad that this one feels like it'll be the same. I also see that this one is also going to involve a wedding that they're going to be having to go to as well, and I love the trope of like characters coming back to a town where they grew up and like weddings in books. I love reading it, so I can't wait. I think this one's going to be so good. And then we have The Partner Plot by Christina Forrest. This one is coming out February 27th, so pretty soon, and this one's about two former high school sweethearts get a second chance in this marriage of convenience. This is one that usually I'd be like, I don't know, because I don't love reading about like high school sweethearts getting a second chance. Like, I could care less. But the fact that it says marriage of convenience, that definitely has me intrigued because I'm like, why is it a marriage of convenience? And I love reading about those kinds of things. But also because Christina Forrest is the same author as The Neighbor Favor, which is a book that I read last year that I was a really big fan of. Like, I really enjoyed that one. So that's the main reason why this one has me intrigued and I can't wait to read it. And then we also have Right on Cue by Fallon Ballard. This is a romance that's also coming out in February. And this is from the same author as Lisan Love, which was one of my favorite romance books that I read recently. This one says it's a new romantic comedy in which a former actress turned screenwriter finds herself back in the spotlight only for her romantic lead to be the one man she can't stand. So we're following this character named Emmy Harper, who was once considered the queen of writing romantic comedies. So it says that she's going to be returning to the screen for the first time in a long time, but then it says a last-minute injury benches her trusted co-star. With filming about to start, there's only one other actor available on such short notice, and that's Grayson West. And he's a blockbuster action star, and I guess they have some beef with each other. And of course, as filming begins, the friction between Emmy and Grayson is palpable, and it's anyone's guess if it's unresolved awkwardness or simmering sexual tension. I don't know, it sounds like it'll be a fun time. I mean, I love books that follow, you know, behind the scenes of Hollywood and with actors and things like that. I think it's really fun, and because because I've previously loved a book from this author, it has me intrigued. And then we have The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. This one's coming out in May, and I think I've talked about this time and time again, but with Christina Lauren, I never know if I'm gonna be like interested in their newer releases, because Christina Lauren is the definition of like hit or miss author for me. Like sometimes I've loved their books and sometimes I've just been really let down and disappointed. But this one sounds interesting because it says it's a new romance between the buttoned up heir of a grocery chain and his free-spirited artist ex as they fake their relationship in order to receive a massive inheritance. And so I think the main reason why I'm intrigued by this is because it's a fake relationship. Like I do love the fake dating, the fake relationship trope in romance books. It's one of my favorites. And so I did say like I don't think that I'll read another Christina Lauren in the future unless it has specific tropes in the book that I really like, and this one happens to have that. So I think I will try to be checking this one out when it comes out in May. All right, and then we have This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan. This one's coming out in March, and this one I think technically is the sequel to Before I Let Go, but I also think this one could be read as a standalone. But I was a really big fan of Before I Let Go, so that's why I'm really excited to check this one out. And it says we're following the character Soledad Barnes, who has her life all planned out. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, we did get introduced to this character in the first book. I can't remember if it's like her sister or her friend, but this one sounds interesting to me because it sounds like we're following this character who's a single mother. She's doing her best to keep a roof over her daughter's heads and food on the table. And it says in the process of saving them all, Soledad rediscovers herself. From the ashes of a life burned to the ground, something bold and new can rise, but then an unlikely man enters the picture, the forbidden one, the one she shouldn't want but she can't seem to resist, which is, you know, one of my favorite. I love the forbidden romance trope. Like sign me up, let's go. I love Kennedy Ryan's writing so much, and I think this cover looks so beautiful. I love how it kind of matches the first book, but it has more pinks on the cover. And then we have Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This one's coming out in April, and this is another one that, you know, it's Abby Jimenez. After she has written Part of Your World and Yours Truly, she has just been on a streak lately of some amazing books, and this is another one that I'm really excited to read because it involves one of my favorite tropes, which is like fake dating, because it says Justin has a curse, and thanks to a Reddit thread, it's now all over the internet, but every woman he dates goes on to find their soulmate the second they break up. When a woman slides into his DMs with the same problem, they come up with a plan. They'll date each other and break up. Their curses will cancel each other's out, and they'll go on to find the loves of their lives. It just sounds like it's gonna be a fun time, and usually I probably wouldn't have put this on a most anticipated list just because of that premise, but because it's Abby Jimenez, I will definitely be adding this to my most anticipated because I loved her last two books so much, so I'm really looking forward to this one. And then we have A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. This is by Tia Williams, and this one's coming out in February, very soon. This is the same author as 7 Days in June, which is a book that I absolutely loved when I read it a few years ago. And this one says it's another epic love story 100 years in the making. This one just sounds intriguing too because it says set against the backdrop of modern Harlem and Renaissance glamour, A Love Song for Ricky Wilde is a swoon-worthy love story of two passionate artists drawn to the magic, romance, and opportunity of New York, and whose lives are uniquely and irreversibly linked. So like, what the heck, New York? Are you kidding me? I just mentioned like anything in New York, like let's go, sign me up. And then there's this book called ASAP by Axio. I think this is the only young adult book that I have included on this romance list, but this is from the same author as XOXO, which was like one of my favorite romance books when I read it like 2 years ago now. This one just looks very cute, and it's actually a companion novel to XOXO. It's following the fan favorites Sori, the wealthy daughter of a K-pop company owner, and then Nathan, her K-pop star ex-boyfriend, in a swoon-worthy second chance love story. I mean, because it's a second chance romance, I'm a little bit skeptical because that's not my favorite romance trope, but because it's a companion novel to XOXO, I'm just really looking forward to this, and I think it's gonna be a cute time. And then we have The Love of My Afterlife, which is coming out in July. This one looks and it sounds so cool, and I'm obsessed with this cover. Like, I love the yellow font choice on here. I just think it looks great. So it says a recently deceased woman meets the one in the afterlife waiting room. So like, how weird for a book premise, right? That we're following a character who has recently just died. And then it says when she finds herself in the afterlife, she strikes up some like chemistry with this man who's also just recently died. It says she is offered a deal in which she can return to Earth and reconnect with the mysterious stranger, but she only has 10 days to connect with this man and return to Earth. I don't fully understand what this is even about, but it sounds so cool. I saw that this book has been getting compared to that TV show The Good Place because of the way that it's like taking place in the afterlife, like right after you've died, which I think sounds so fun because I really loved The Good Place back when I watched it a few years ago. So I think it'd be cool to read a romance that sounds kind of similar to that. All right, and then the last romance that I have on this list is this book called Here We Go Again by Alison Cotron. This book is one that I'm highly anticipating because because this is the same author as some of my favorite romance books of all time, like The Charm Offensive, as well as Kiss Her Once for Me. And this one says it's a new queer rom-com following once childhood best friends forced together to drive their former teacher across the country. So this one sounds really interesting to me because we're following these two characters, Logan and Rosemary, and I guess that they used to go to school together and they became rivals after some time, and so they went 10 years after graduation without speaking. But now it says they're both still working as teachers, and they find out that their beloved former English teacher and lifelong mentor tells them that he only has a few months left to live, and so they're going to be coming back together to take a road trip. So it sounds like it's going to be a cross-country road trip adventure kind of story, which, yeah, usually that's not really my thing, but because this author has written so many romance books that I've loved before, I'm definitely going to be checking this one out, and I can't wait to read it. And then the last two books that I have on this list that don't really fit into either genres of like thriller, horror stuff, or romance stuff, but I'm still really excited about them, so I had to include them on this list. The first one is The Life Impossible by Matt Haig, and this one's coming out in late August, so it's going to be a while before this one comes out, and there's barely any information about it. We don't even have a cover or much of a synopsis, but it says The Life Impossible is a story of wild adventure, deep transformation, and gloriously heartwarming characters. It shows how a new outlook can burst into life at any moment and change everything. Like, that is super vague, right? We don't really know too much about this, but because it's Matt Haig, you know, it's the same author as The Midnight Library, The Humans, like some of my favorite books of all time, I'm definitely going to be reading anything that Matt Haig publishes, and I can't wait. I'm so excited that he has a new book coming out this year, so I thought I would mention it. And then the last book on this list is going to be this book called Annie Bot. This one's coming out in March, and this one's kind of like a sci-fi adult romance book that just sounds really unique and really interesting. It says for fans of Never Let Me Go and My Dark Vanessa, which is like a very interesting combination of things. Like, I wasn't the biggest fan of Never Let Me Go, but I did enjoy the book My Dark Vanessa, and it says this one is a powerful, provocative novel about the relationship between a female robot and her human owner, exploring questions of intimacy, power, autonomy, and control. So this one sounds like it's gonna be some like Blade Runner shit where like it's a guy falling for a female robot and then kind of talking about like the weirdness of that. Just sounds like it's gonna be really interesting and really thought-provoking. I kind of love light sci-fi stories like this, so I really hope that this one ends up being a win for me, and I'm really looking forward to it. Alright, so those are all of my most anticipated books of 2024. I also thought I would include this graphic on the screen here so you can see a few other books that I do know about that I'm very intrigued by that I didn't take the time to go through one by one because I don't want this video to be super long. But these are a few other books that I'm aware that are publishing this year that I'm really looking forward to. So you'll have to let me know on this list, are there any books that you're really looking forward to that you might have not known about before that you're really excited about now? Or I would love to know if there are any anticipated books that you're really looking forward to that I didn't get to mention on this list that you can inform me about, like maybe I don't know about them. I would love to know all of your thoughts in the comments down below, and thank you so much for watching as always, and I will see you very soon with another video. Bye!